Okay, let's do this. Peace and blessings. How y'all doing today? I didn't put a title in yet, but I believe I'm gonna call this one FOMO. Fear of missing out, vaccinations, or vaccinations, FOMO. You know what I mean? Whole subject of vaccinations and fear of missing out. Let's just jump straight into it. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be jumping all over the place because a lot of things tie in to this subject. And I think it's, clear cut when you talk about vaccinations. And today, I mean, a few weeks ago I checked and it was like 17 million Americans had gotten the COVID vaccination. And I think it was like yesterday or the day before I heard up to 90 million Americans got the COVID vaccination. And I'm starting to see a lot of who these people are, potentially, because there's always a mixed crowd. The majority of people still walk around with a mask on, etc., etc. But there's some people who won't wear masks. And, I just sometimes see, like, when I'm looking at someone in the store with a lot of people and they're not concerned about masking up, it's most likely these individuals who, in their mind, have taken the vaccination and feel like they're safe. Although the CDC and other, entities are still telling people to wear their masks, everybody's looking for to break free and get back into, the swing of things. They're taking this vaccination with the belief that they're protected. One of the major PowerPoints of this video is really to focus on the validity, the proven validity of this vaccination. And there is none. There is none. There's no one, there's no doctor, there's no scientist. They all say they believe. They all say that we all need to. You have to pay attention to the terminology. And they're requesting, and and they're talking about the importance and the need, what they believe the need is in this time to get this vaccination. No one, even when they do the numbers, no one is given 100% on anything about this vaccination. No one is saying there's 100% chance that there's no chance in the world you'll get the you'll get the there's no way in the world you get the coronavirus if you take this shot. One of the last things I heard, because of the holiday weekend coming up, that they say that if you are vaccinated and you're in a room full of people who are also vaccinated, that it's safe for you to not wear a mask. Now, some of you who are limited in thinking will be like, man, well, that sounds cool to me. You know what I'm saying? That might sound cool to everybody. But this is what you're not getting. What's the difference in saying that than saying, if you got coronavirus, then you're okay being in a room with other people who have coronavirus? You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. So they're not saying that you can't get it. Matter of fact, to go further, they say if you are vaccinated and you're in a room of people who are not vaccinated, you should still wear your mask. Why? If you're safe, why should you wear a mask? The people who don't have a mask and who are not vaccinated have the chance of catching coronavirus. And no one's speaking on whether that chance of getting coronavirus could come from you who are vaccinated. But then they say, if you are vaccinated, like say for family gatherings, small gatherings, and the majority of you are vaccinated, and maybe one or two aren't, then you should be safe to not wear a mask. What that's saying to me, because none of this is factual, or guarantee of anything. What this saying is to me is, hey, you and a bunch of you got the vaccination. One or two of you in your group and your family didn't get the vaccination. Y'all safe. Not that the people who ain't vaccinated ain't safe. It's just they're saying, hey, the dummies in your family didn't want to take the vaccination, then the hell with them, let them die. If they catch it, you good. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of what they saying. But that even with me saying that kind of leans toward the belief that the vaccination is safe and anybody who doesn't have it is in danger. No one has said anything about what this vaccination is guaranteed to do. Okay? Man, there's a lot in this. Like, why is the vaccination, this herd immunity garbage, being pushed on people? I mean, to the point where they're saying you won't be able to travel, or you won't be able to go to sporting events, etc., etc. Things that they feel like the average American person does, they're going to make it difficult for them to do, just so they can bully the vaccination on people, because they think it's the best thing for people to do. First of all, let's address that. Who's saying they think it's the best thing? This herd immunity is the best thing for the American people, or for people around the globe. Who's saying this? Who's saying it's the best thing? You know what I'm saying? Because we don't research those who's supposed to be doing the research. You don't know what their real objective is. You just know what they're telling you. And there's been many talks of the history of those in government and those in medicine, especially dealing with different classes of people. Why are you so trusting? Because I'll say this as well. I'm not anti-vaccination. I'm just anti-stupidity. I'm not trying to be someone's guinea pig. Many people are saying the same thing. That it needs to be tested thoroughly before given to people. And these vaccinations have not been tested thoroughly, and there's no doctor or scientist who can tell you that they've been tested thoroughly to the point where they can have no concerns. What they are telling you is that they are monitoring the effects of the virus. They're monitoring for any adverse effects or things of that nature. No one has said that this freaking vaccination kept them from getting COVID. Okay? Let's say they are keeping, of course they're going to keep tabs on the effects of the people who have taken the shot, as of up to date. They should be keeping track of people, because it's experimental. That's why they got to keep track of it. There's no need for them to keep track of something that they already know about. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you go to get the flu shot, the doctors ain't really keeping track of you and what happens with you. But like, if you had an adverse effect, it will be put on record. Like, if you came back and say, hey, my arm is swollen, or I'm feeling sick, they'll make note of that. But they got so much research built up on the flu arm vaccination that they could probably tell you, okay, well, we've heard this before, or they'll know if something's different, or et cetera, et cetera. But with this, everybody's a guinea pig. And what's major to me, and it bothers me that it seems like I sometimes feel like there's not too many people reading in between the lines and catching on to this stuff. When man, there's so much. This vaccination that is still in testing, and you are the test. Anytime someone says something negative about the coronavirus vaccination, they have not one time so far, not one time attributed any negativity to the vaccination. They only said, oh, you might feel a little nausea. Oh, your arm might hurt for a couple of days. Oh, this is normal. That's it. But when somebody says blood clot, you know what I'm saying? So when somebody says death, when somebody says, anything that would alarm people to a degree that they would say, hold up, I don't know if I should take this. They disconnect that completely from the coronavirus shot and kind of make it like speculation. We haven't, this is what they say, we haven't confirmed that any of those situations are connected to the vaccination. But they're not telling you, look, they won't attribute any illness, any ill-gotten effects to the coronavirus, but they're quick to say what they think and feel is so positive about it. You know what I'm saying? Where's the concern? They're putting a lot of people of color, different nationalities, in front of us, in front of the camera, talking positive. People like doctors or just black people, media personalities. They're putting these people in front of us that they want us to connect with and feel we do connect with, to say, hey, it's okay. I'm getting mines. I got mines. That don't mean they're not going to be a zombie, 6 months from now. That, they're just saying they got this. So, why is it that they disconnect any ill report of the effects of the vaccination, but they won't, but they're pushing it as the best thing in the world. You know what I'm saying? And at the same time, although this vaccination is being given out around the globe, supposedly, every day I turn on the news, I'm hearing about a spike in the COVID. It's a spike in COVID. Oh, despite 90 million vaccinations, there's a spike in France. They're shutting everything down. They was just about to open everything back up. Now they got to shut everything down. Oh, they got to shut this down. They got to do this. They got to do that. Now in Miami, they talk about doing some test run with, think about it. Look at the testing they're doing. They're using people as guinea pigs. Real talk. They want to open the stadium to about, I think, 4,000 people, in which they want to try and put a section for vaccinated and a section for non-vaccinated. For what? Why are you doing it? And people are focusing more on the fact that they'll be able to get out and enjoy the sports. But what are they doing? When you think it's not going to be another report that's going to come out and say, hey, and I guarantee it's going to lean to the side of the vaccinated. They're going to say, hey, we opened the stadium, 4,000 people, 2,000 vaccinated, 2,000 unvaccinated. And the way they're going to know who is vaccinated is when you give your name or whatever, or probably when you get the tickets, they're going to be able to, you got to have that proof or whatever they use for proof to show you're vaccinated. So that means after the event's over, they're going to say, oh, out of the 4,000 people that were in the stadium, 1,200 of the non-vaccinated caught COVID. Oh my God, now I got to run and get my shot, because they're not going to say nothing about those who were vaccinated, whether they got sick, whether they were the ones who got the ones who were unvaccinated sick, you know what I'm saying, etc., etc. So another thing they said in that same report is, one of the questions or one of the concerns that people had is, all right, if I'm vaccinated, why does it matter where I sit? Like, I understand you separating the vaccinated from the unvaccinated, but why does it matter where I sit? All right, you're vaccinated. You feel so comfortable that you can go and sit among the unvaccinated. But that shows how much you don't care about other people, because you think that everybody has to think like you and go ahead and take this trial version of some vaccination, and now you sit among them, and you might be the person to give the people who are smart enough not to take it you might be the one to go get them the COVID because it's in your system. You know what I'm saying? So, but you know that's vaccination, and it's always going to be a lot. You know, people on. It seems like the people who are not taking this vaccination are a lot on the losing end as far as numbers. But the thing is, there's so much to be concerned. You don't know if, you know, a year from now, you mess around and end up being sterile. You might not be able to have children. Let's say the vaccination works. Some people might, you know, like if you're up in age, you're not trying to have children, and you end up becoming sterile, you might not worry about that. But now they're saying that the spread of the COVID is largely happening among younger people because younger people are socializing more. So they want to get younger people, even down to the babies, taking the COVID shot. What happens when you do that to especially our black people? Oh, before I jump into that, how do you know what they're putting in your body? Who's to say that they don't have zoning for the shots? They actually do, from what I heard, from what I've seen in the reports. Now, of course, they're not going to go as deep into so-called zoning as I like to go into, but they got zoning for different shots. How do you know in Beverly Hills they don't got, you know, grade A COVID, you know, scientific COVID vaccination, and then in Brownsville, New York, you know what I mean, they got the freaking get sick and die quick vaccination. You don't know what you putting in you. You know what I mean? That's always been the case. Look at our education system. You would say, well, there's a school in Brownsville, New York, and there's a school in Beverly Hills, in California. But yet, when you compare the educational system, you find out for some reason those that got money get the best of things, and those who they deem as being lower class or not having as much or not important enough, they get something that's kind of fugazi. You get an education that puts you to work in a supermarket, while the ones in Beverly Hills get an education that shows them how to run the freaking world. But now you got COVID, and they're making it seem like your world's coming to an end if you don't take a vaccination. Think about it. You don't know. You don't know what they're giving you. You don't know why they give it to you. You don't know what effect it'll have. You know what I mean? So a year or two from now, when you're trying to have a child or whatever, and they say, for some reason, they're gonna say for some strange reason, the African American has slowed down in their reproduction. African American and Spanish reproduction has always been a major issue to white America, because while we are double, tripling, quadrupling in you know, in the last few decades, to the point that you know, they know that their species is dying out. It's not just because of our growth in numbers, but it's because of their decline in numbers. You know, there are many Caucasians who have to go and take all kind of special pills and kind of methods to just have a child now. And if you heard the saying that, you know, when one person is born, another person dies, that ratio doesn't work for black and Latino, for the black and Latino community, because for every person that dies, you probably got 4 or 5 that just got born. You know what I mean? They're all about to be born. So that's alarming to the Caucasian who currently runs the globe. You know what I'm saying? You don't think they've been trying to mastermind something to decrease our population? They're having a hard time controlling us. Right now, we're dealing with George Floyd verdict and trial situation, and they worrying about rioting and National Guard and all that. Man, they don't want to do that. They want to kill you and go about their business the next day like usual. Like back in the day when they would lynch us, and it was just part of the day. So now the fact that we flipping out and we got so many people, you know, with the right push and at the right moment, black people could do something that can be catastrophic in the eyes of the white man, or toward the white man. They're saying, let's cut down on them. So why would you trust their medications, their science, their education? Why are we so trusting to go and take the things that they want to give us without at least looking into it first? You know what I'm saying? You got some people who could have been taking a pseudo drug or a pseudo vaccination, which could be water and sugar in their system. Then you got other people take a vaccination and pass out. Why is that? And they try to explain. So this a big part of it, like I said, is the actual missing out. The fear of missing out. You want to be able to go to the park. Think about it. COVID hit. I heard a report earlier that said, like the early months of COVID was like in April of last year. It was out before that, but people were still trying to figure out what was what and what was this thing that was hurting people. They didn't know if it was SARS or the flu. They didn't know what it was, but they said by April it was a spike in this so-called COVID. So let's say April was a good marking time to say, hey, COVID is known now and it's killing people, right? So April of 2020. So that was April. That's springtime. That's when you just trying to get out and really get it popping. So now it's April now. It's April again. This is pretty much almost a year, if not a little bit more than a year, since COVID hit the scene, right? People want to get out. People want to have a good time. People are fed up of having to be boxed in and being controlled in the way and having to live the way that they are living. And I get it. So people are ready to do whatever they feel is necessary to get back to what they feel is normal, right? But there's certain things that people should pay attention to. Like the things I just said about this government, these scientists, and people who don't have your best interest. Oh, before I jump into the next part of the subject, let me go back to this. I mentioned this a few times to people, and it's like in one ear and out the other. Do you recall when, like I said, around this time when COVID hit, and they were figuring out, and they were giving it, and they gave the name COVID, and they were talking about testing. See, like today, they're saying everybody should get tested. Do y'all remember? It's only a year ago. You can't act like you forgot. It was just a year ago that when they were talking about testing, it was only people who could afford to be tested. The Hollywood stars and the government. There was those of us that they wasn't even trying to test. They didn't care if you had COVID or not. They were telling you, hey, if you got it, just try and stay to yourself. Quarantine. You know what I mean? Self-quarantine, and we'll get back to you. They wasn't even saying, hey, remember, hospitals were turning people away. All of that. I remember because I know I went to the hospital when I got ill thinking first thing they're going to do is test me for COVID. I felt like I had all the symptoms. And when I got in there, they gave me a cocktail of aspirin and Benadryl and sent me on my way. They wasn't trying to test for everybody. You understand? So now they're saying everybody needs to get tested. What changed? Oh, now we have enough tests for everybody. No, now you got something for everybody. It might not, and it's some kind of test. It's some kind of experiment, but it's not out of concern. Remember Bill Gates when I'm saying remember, like everybody watches and pays attention to stuff I pay attention to. There's an interview with Bill Gates where they're talking about vaccination, and Bill Gates said the vaccination needs to be given to everybody in Africa first. What? Since when you been so concerned with Africa, Bill Gates? You know what I'm saying? And you're not even a scientist, Bill Gates. You just happen to be somebody who's funding this project of vaccinations. So for somebody who has no real scientific background, Mr. Computer Man, why are you so convinced that Africa needs to get it first? Because the first places that this COVID seemed to have been spiking in and known of was America and China. Why you ain't say the American people had to be vaccinated first or the Chinese people got to be vaccinated first? You jump straight to Africa, man. Y'all going through all kind of experimenting on people in Africa, man. Because they don't question stuff. But now y'all found a way to give it to the American people without them questioning stuff. By saying, hey, you'll be able to go to the football game. Hey, you'll be able to get on the plane without no hassle. Hey, you'll be able to go to the supermarket again. Hey, you won't have to wear this mask. So this is what you've been doing to American people. And like I was saying, you don't have no proof of nothing as far as working. You're just putting people with certain profiles in front of the American eye to make it more convincing. You're putting Dr. Fauci, a couple black, y'all credited a black woman for coming up with the COVID vaccination. First of all, to my knowledge, I don't think it was her alone. I believe it might have been a team of people who came up with this vaccination. But you putting her out in front. Pretty dark-skinned woman with a nice smile, out in the front as the producer of this COVID vaccination. In one of the interviews, it was even suggested that we should back someone that looks like ourselves. The interview was about her and her making the vaccination, but that's not what they were talking about. They were more so talking about how we should get the vaccination because it's like she made it. They try to pull the old Obama on us, like we're going to back everything that a black person does, so that's what we're going to do, put them on the front. You know what I mean? I just seen some black doctor, I don't even know what her name was, just before I started this recording, smiling and talking about, we should take the vaccination. You don't know anything about it. Is there anyone who's going to say that in 12 months, if my foot falls off because of this vaccination, that they're going to take care of it? That you're going to be able to, you know what I mean? Is there going to be some compensation? Are you even going to say that it had anything to do with this vaccination? Because we see right now, from the early stages, anything that someone says is wrong with the vaccination, you deny it. We already can't sue the pharmaceutical company, but I know it's deeper than that. So you're not going to get any money, and you're not even going to get an apology or, the proven fact that it hasn't. Listen, before COVID came out, we was fighting the whole MMR vaccination. There's a whole video on it called Vaxxed about the MMR vaccination. And it's like, people always talk about anti-vax. There's a group of people who are anti-vaccination, who don't want to get vaccinations and are wrongfully trying to lead everybody else not to take vaccinations. But you don't understand, they do have that group, but then there's also some people who are just concerned with your method of vaccinating people. For one, for those who don't know, the MMR vaccination stands for the mumps, measles, and rubella. Those were 3 different vaccinations that we used to get back in the day. But to be more cost effective, to save money and to make money, those who produced the vaccination for mumps, measles, and rubella made it into one vaccination. Now, each of these vaccinations, to my knowledge, have a small degree of mercury, or a mercury plus other little components that affect the body, that ill affect the body. So now you put these 3 things together, whether it's all mercury, so now that means it's a high dose of mercury, or mercury plus other components that affect the body, the brain, the functions of an individual, especially in an infant. So when you get your MMR, they want you to get this like almost right after birth, a few months into birth. They want you to, as a mother, to give your child this MMR vaccination. And there's so many reports of women and families saying they had a perfect baby until they got this shot. Babies start becoming autistic, knocking their heads around, stuttering, and making strange sounds. This after the MMR vaccination. But you love these devils who push these things on you so much that when you take your child back and voice your concerns, even if you feel strongly about what just happened, they say, no, wasn't us, wasn't the shots. It's just your baby. You know what I mean, even if they were to say, hey, you know what, it may have been the shot, but this only happens 1 in every 100,000 children, that would be a leap forward. You know what I mean? That would be a big leap, and say, hey, well, you're going to have to compensate me and take care of my child for the rest of life, if you just destroy my child's life. I don't care if he's the only one in 1,000, in 100,000. It still happens because of vaccination. But you won't even get that. And we see that right now with this COVID vaccination, that's the same way they're handling things. They're saying, no, it ain't the vaccination. That doctor who died, who they said he was a doctor. He was in perfect health. He didn't drink, he didn't smoke, he didn't have any outstanding health conditions. He takes the vaccination, and 10, 15 days later, his brain swells up to the point where his brain was so swollen that it squeezed out of his skull, and he died. And they said it had nothing to do with the vaccination. How many people are reporting blood clots due to the COVID vaccination? And they're saying it has nothing to do with the vaccination? Not even a possibility? Why are they saying it? Like, why do they speak like that? Because they don't want to alter or hinder the flow of those of you who are potentially about to get this vaccination. Anything like that would hinder the flow of people getting the vaccination. So what do they say? So what does that mean? They'd rather lie to you than for you to not go ahead and get the vaccination. They'd rather threaten you on the low. And when I say threaten, let me say how if you can't work, if they tell you you have to get a vaccination shot to go to work, you can't get employment. That's a threat. You can't leave the country. That's a threat. You can't go to the doctor unless you get a vaccine. That's a threat. Because how are you as a human being supposed to survive unless you bow down to what they want you to do, which hasn't even been guaranteed in any type of way? They just feel that it's the best thing for the man and woman on the planet Earth today, especially black people. They think it's the best thing for us today, but no one's going to take responsibility when it goes left. You don't know if ain't a look. You don't know what this thing is, man. But I'm not a doctor, so most people listening to this ain't gonna listen to me, because I'm not a doctor. But at least when you go to your doctor, you want to know things. You want to know, hey doc, you give me this shot. What's it for? Oh, this shot's gonna keep you from getting sick. Well, doc, what's the side effects? Well, you might get a little nausea, man. You're gonna get the side effects, and then you decide whether you can deal with that. With this vaccination, they're telling you what they've seen so far, what they expect to happen from the vaccination. They can't tell you definite anything about the vaccination or its effects or how it affects you. You know what I'm saying? What'll set off something else. You mess around, take the vaccination, and go drink a Pepsi, and you know, your head blow up or something. You don't know what's gonna happen. It might take 3 Pepsis. I don't know. But why are you so quick to believe? And like I said, it's a threat, because no one should threaten you with not being able to work somewhere. We've lived through COVID for a whole year now, and people have been working, not to the degree that we're used to, but people have been functioning. The world has been functioning. If that means we have to adapt to what's going on now until we have a clinically proven vaccination, then the world should just have to adapt. I mean, like adapt in a way that we have to continue wearing masks. Make better masks. Make better working environments. You just have to adjust that way. But to tell somebody if you don't get a vaccination that you can't work here, or you can't leave the country, and you can't look. Let's fast forward and be a little bit more realistic. If you at a job and they tell you can't work there no more, either you got to find another job, but in this day and time, most likely any job you're going to is going to be leading to a vaccination. So when they tell you need to be vaccinated, that's a lot of pressure. That's pressure on you to eventually get vaccinated. You're going to give in because you're going to realize all doors are closed if you don't get vaccinated. Or if you're a strong-willed and intelligent person, you say, hey, you know what, man, I'm just going to have to do without this job. But then what you going to do? Rent's due. Refrigerators getting empty. Oh, I'm going to go apply for public assistance. Public assistance is run by the government. If they're already telling you it's your job that you got to get a vaccination, you're going to go to public assistance, and they're going to say, in order for us to help you, you need to get a vaccination. You think I'm BSing? Think about it. A lot of people who are going to public assistance, I remember from back in the day when you needed public assistance, you go down there, apply, they give you a card or some food stamps, whatever, and you go about your business and come back for another appointment. Eventually, I think within the last decade, what they did was, if you are on public assistance and you don't have a job, meaning you can get public assistance if you have a job, but you're not making that much money, and then public assistance will help you. But if you're on public assistance and you don't have a job, then they put you to work. Meaning you was out there working in the park, parks and recreation and stuff like that. Like damn near community service to get your little food stamps or get your little dollars. You know what I'm saying? That's a government governmentally run system. So if you on housing, if you on Section 8, same thing. They make the rules of how you get them to help you. So they're saying, if you want something from us, what are you doing? So at this point in time, in this era, everything's about COVID. So how do you know, or how can you not expect that you don't have a job now, you go to public assistance, they're not going to say something like, well, we'll set you up for your COVID appointment. Like, what? What you talking about? I don't need no COVID appointment. Sir, for us to be able to assist you any further, we're going to need you. Then you say, man, forget that. So you don't got a job. You're not getting no public assistance. The landlord is saying, hey, man, rent's due. I understand you're going through some tough times, but, you can't go through tough times forever and live here. So now you need your rent money. And you say, man, you know what, man? Forget this, man. America wild. I'm getting on a plane. I'm going back to the islands, man, where my family at or something, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm going to someplace else where I ain't got to deal with this. And you get to the airport, and they be like, or the travel agent, and they say, for you to travel, you need a vaccination. So hold up, I ain't got no job. I got no public assistance. I'm about to get kicked out. I can't leave the country. You end up on the street. Now you a bum. You're not going to be able to go to the shelters, because eventually they're going to say everybody in the shelter got COVID, and the only way for you to stay here is if you got a shot. So you can't sleep in the shelter. What you end up doing? You're hungry, you cold, you wet, you dirty, you need all kind of things. You're getting sick. You say, man, I'm about to rob something. Or you just vagrant. You just out in the street, and guess what happens for most vagrants who are out in the street for too long? They end up getting arrested. You can't sleep here. You can't stay here. They knock you upside your head, or they throw you in a paddy wagon and take you to the jail. Now you got 3 hots in the cot. But hold up. There's a processing. When you go into the jail system, they're going to want to take all your information, take your blood work, and anything else at that time they feel is necessary. And now that you like pretty much their property, they're going to suggest the COVID shot. Oh, hold on, there might be a way out. You don't want to take the COVID shot, we're going to put you in isolation. A little, 10 by 12 box, not even a full cell size or something, you know what I mean? Something very uncomfortable. They're going to make you very uncomfortable until you decide you want to take this shot. Either that or they're going to force you. Because remember, what was it? Was it Dr. Fauci who said by law they should be able to just plunge a needle into your arm? What do you think is going to happen if they actually arrest you? So now you're back in good standings after going through all of that with them. So what it is they're bully tactics that are really a function of war. You know, when people think of war, they think of the troops on the battlefield and guns and bodies dying. There are many ways of war. There's all kind of warfare. And I'm trying to force you to take this vaccination that hasn't been proven. So like, let's say this video that I'm making now is still out 12 months from now, 24 months from now, and they got a vaccination that worked. I would hate for anybody to look back and be like, yo, that brother didn't know what he was talking about. Because like I said, I'm not anti-vaccination. I just want to make sure, and I think that you should want to make sure that the vaccination works and is safe. You know what I'm saying? How many things do you turn on the TV for? You got, do you have such and such and such and such? Well, take this pill. And at the bottom, they got the whole thing about all the side effects. May cause death, diarrhea, blah, 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 headaches. You know what I mean? Uncontrollable hives. And you like, what? Man, this thing sounds terrible. But it cures whatever it is that they telling you. It kills headaches, but may cause death. So you don't know what's going on with this vaccination. Yeah, might cure COVID, but we might just fall out and die, 14 months from now. You know what I'm saying? You just might not be able to have no children if you're in childbearing age. You know what I'm saying? Or your children are going to come out all deformed because, let's talk about that. What are you putting in your body when you are taking this vaccination? So right now, I believe they have 3 different vaccinations. The last one to come out, which they just freaking had to take a batch back, I believe it's the Johnson & Johnson vaccination, which is supposed to be a 1-dose vaccination. Then they have the 2 prior to it. One of the vaccines, I don't know the names of them, is a Pfizer vaccination and there's another one, right? But one of them has synthetic, a synthetic makeup. What that means is that you are putting artificial things, and I know we've been eating artificial, drinking artificial all our lives, so people don't think that's a big deal. But you're talking about things that are dealing with cells in the body. You're putting synthetic organisms into your body. Now, the purpose of these vaccinations is to build up immunity against the actual virus, okay? So you're putting, and now like I said, there's 3 different vaccinations, but let's talk about the one that's synthetic, whichever one that is. Y'all figure it out. You're putting synthetic organisms, something made in the lab, into your body to fight off the virus. What these synthetic organisms need to do is they need to replace the organisms in your body that should naturally be fighting off the virus that are not recognizing and fighting off the virus. So let's say they've been successful in finding some synthetic organism that does recognize the virus and can destroy the virus. Sounds like a good thing. But these synthetic organisms will replace the natural organisms in your body. And just like the fruits and vegetables that we have here on our planet, pay attention. When you got, and you can speak to some farmers. If you don't believe me, speak to your local farmers. They have farmers who have been farming for generations using natural seeds. And when they plant their natural seeds and get their product, they're happy, they're farming. But then people have learned to make synthetic seeds. These synthetic seeds are like weeds in your garden. These synthetic seeds are like parasites. And I'm using these examples to make it clear to you about synthetic organisms in your body. So now you're saying these synthetic organisms are going to replace the organisms that are in your body that naturally do what they're supposed to do. And then guess what? Because they're synthetic, they might have some other effect that is not natural in your body, that your body does not need. When will you see that? That's to be seen. But the point is, because they're not natural, they will not do all of the functions, or may have additional functions that are not conducive to your body. Let's think about cloning. Why is cloning illegal? You take organisms, you take DNA from a real person and make something that is real too. But they say cloning is like fake people, right? Because you won't get the same. There'll be something missing. There'll be something different about these so-called clones. But let's go back to organisms and farmers. That's where I was at with the farmers. So now, old man Farmer Bill make his living, with his pumpkin seeds or whatever. And then scientist Joe says, I know how to make pumpkins, seedless pumpkins. So when Halloween comes, you don't have to gut it. It's just going to be an empty pumpkin. So he makes a synthetic pumpkin, which has pretty much what would be a synthetic seed. And when you plant this synthetic thing, it spreads. So if Farmer Joe, if Farmer Joe is next to Scientist Bill or whatever, the bees, the birds, the air, the wind, they all will cause what would naturally happen in pollination, will cause the synthetic organisms to be transferred into other areas. So if the birds, the bees, the wind, and everything else contribute to the synthetic seed get into the real farmers, to Farmer Joe's farm, those synthetic seeds don't just sit there and die. They start to grow along with the real seeds. This doesn't sound like a problem. But guess what ends up happening? The synthetic seed ends up, I need y'all to hear me, man. The synthetic seed ends up killing off the natural seed. There are cases in court to this date, I believe, of farmers accusing other farmers from using. See, they have patent on their seed. How do you have a patent on the seed? If this seed came from God, my pumpkin seed look like your pumpkin seed, there's no patent. But because they've been able to alter certain things in the seed, they can recognize whose seed came from where and what seed is what. So Farmer Joe is now getting sued by Scientist Bill, who sold his seed to Farmer Billy. Now Farmer Billy's using a synthetic seed and says Farmer Joe stole it. Farmer Joe didn't steal nothing. The synthetic seed made its way through pollination into his field and took over. So now half of Farmer Joe, or all of Farmer Joe's product, is looking like stolen material. This is what's going on in your body when you put synthetic things in there. Excuse me. So the synthetic organism is now taking over the real organism of your body. And although you might think it solved a certain problem that you were trying to solve, you don't know what the effects of that synthetic thing is going to do later on other areas, or other aspects of your body. All right, so that's not something. That's a synthetic one. Now the other strand is the other vaccination, whichever one it is. I believe has a certain strand of the coronavirus in it. Of course, it's going to be a minute, very small amount of the vaccination. That small amount of the virus, pardon me. That small amount of the virus is just like the flu virus. It's just like the flu vaccination. When you get the flu vaccination, they actually give you the flu. They inject the flu into your body, a small amount, so that your natural defense system will pick up on it and fight it and build up what I guess they call antibodies or whatever, a defense system against that virus, so that you won't get an all-out flu. You might get a little sick or whatever, but the whole thing is so that you don't get the all-out flu. The thing about that is that sometimes when people get the flu, if their body don't act right, they just got the flu. You just got injected with the flu, and now you got to deal with surviving the flu, which sometimes kills people, right? So here you go with the COVID vaccination. This one has a small strand of the COVID, with hopes that it fights it off. No one really understands the COVID virus in itself, but they already made a vaccination that has a small strand, hoping that it works like the flu vaccination and fights it off. And then they tell you the benefit of having this vaccination is like if you were to get COVID again or later on, it won't be as bad as if you just caught it for the first time. You won't have to be on a ventilator. You won't have to use a respirator. You won't. There's less chance that you'll die. That's the same thing as if somebody caught it naturally. If you caught the vaccination, if you caught the virus naturally, and then you survived, most likely your body would have built up some sort of immunity to it, so that you would survive it again, or not get it again. That's probably, and that's usually how something works. So for somebody to give you an experimental drug about an unknown virus and say we just hope that your body fights it off, that's garbage. That's garbage. And like I said, okay, I had chickenpox when I was younger. I think many of us have had chickenpox, at some point in our lives. You ever see that commercial for shingles? I started seeing that within the last couple of years. I didn't know what a shingles was. Do you know they say that if you had chickenpox, that you are at risk of getting shingles at some point in your life? And this shingles thing is supposed to be like painful. But that's, if you had chickenpox, you can get shingles. I'm saying that to say, hey, you get this COVID vaccination. Whether you get it naturally, whether you just happen to catch COVID, or whether you go ahead and you get the vaccination, and then they mess around and 3 years from now and say, hey, if you had COVID, you can get Tringles, I don't know. Whatever comes up, I don't know. Sprinkles, you get lemon pop tops. I don't care what they. My point is that you're gonna get something from having COVID virus. It might make you susceptible to getting something else that can harm you. Now, what's the difference if you get the shot that has the strain in it that your body now has to fight off? You still just put the COVID in your body. It's the same thing as if you just caught it. It doesn't matter if your body fights it off or not. If your body fights it off, that's great, but you still have nothing to go on as far as what can happen from ever having COVID. But I'll say this before I go. I hope that anybody who has had COVID, or ends up catching COVID, can find there are multiple ways nowadays that can fight, that can, minimize or whatever the effects of, and give you a more of a chance of survival today. That I hope that people who are so concerned will look into those methods before taking the shot, or if they happen to get COVID, to look into these methods to save their lives. This is a year after COVID. You know what I mean? Look, this is a year looking back into COVID, and it ain't been pretty. It ain't been comfortable. Oh, I didn't even go into the biblical side. I guess I touched that before. I'm looking at almost an hour talking to y'all now. So, but my point before I even jump into the biblical side of things is this: we survived for a whole year. If you survived from April of last year to April of this year, during the COVID pandemic. Now, I'm not to say that you free and clear because they keep talking about spikes in COVID cases, but if you survive, then you was doing something that allowed you to survive. This thing seemed very easy to catch. So if you survived, you were doing things, most likely you were doing things that were survival type tactics. And although it may be uncomfortable to continue living like that, be thankful you were able to do that. And I think that we should continue living with those survival tactics until further notice. Now, to go into the biblical side, I wanted to do some research before I jumped into this subject. I could only think of like 2 instances that kind of touch this, you know. Alright, for those who read the Bible, you know, you look at me, you say, hey, he's a Muslim, what's he talking about, whatever. But for those who read the Bible, and even in the Quran, when you read up the story of Noah, remember the people were partying, okay? I'm sorry, I gotta go here, you know what I mean? And if you're not into scripture, just listen to it anyway. Just listen to it for the story base, okay? In the story of Noah, in the time of Noah, there was no rain. Think about it. It's dry. It's desert. Noah's building an ark, supposedly. You know what I'm saying? Some people say this ain't even a real story, but listen. So he's building an ark, worrying about a flood coming one day. Fast forward. Or at the time, the people were partying. They were loving life, man. They were, doing whatever they wanted to do. And I'm telling you the story to reflect on yourself. Last April, we were doing what we want to do. Life was just life. Think about it. You know what I'm saying? Obama was what? Obama leaving or whatever? We had Trump. Yeah, Obama was leaving. Trump came. No, Trump was in. What am I talking about? But around that time. So life was looking good. We just had a black president, and now we got this guy talking about he's going to make America great again. People were just loving life. Everybody looked at, there's nothing we can't do as people. Life is just great, right? Oh, one thing people forgot about the time is that we was about to go to war. I believe right at the start of Trump's, yeah, that is when around when Trump came in. Right around when Trump came in, you know what I'm saying? He had a 4-year term. This is last year. Okay, not when he first came in. But at that point, so pardon me, I had to think about it for a while. Yeah, so Trump was president. But at this point in time, Trump was talking mad trash to China. We was worried, we was concerned about having to go to war with China. And I remember this because I put it on Facebook. And when COVID hit, I was like, what happened to war? You know what I'm saying? So because of this unknown COVID virus and where it came from and what we could do about it, all of a sudden there was no more talks about war, and everybody across the globe were trying to work together to figure out what we could do, you know what I mean, to curb this COVID, right? Yeah, of course, Trump was blaming China. China was blaming America. The world is just being affected, right? So that's one thing. No one really paid attention to the fact that we was virtually we were on the verge of war, and boom, COVID comes. So now, all the things that we were used to doing, because a lot of people, even though we weren't on the verge of war, American people wasn't worried about that. No one's ever worried about war coming to America, etc., etc. Because when you think about war, you think about America going overseas and fighting some other people. Never worry about nobody coming here. It's like, oh, that ain't gonna happen. So we can party and, we can party and bullshit, right? So, boom, COVID hits. Now everybody got to go indoors. Everything is shut down. Now we're gonna get biblical. Remember, they were partying and BSing in the time of Noah. And he was warning, he was preaching to the people about the time. He was preaching to the people about what was to come. And they were laughing at him. and they was clowning him, and no one believed. They thought he was crazy, right? So boom, it starts raining. It starts raining, and it doesn't stop raining. People are shocked to see rain because they ain't seen rain in a long time. It rains so much it starts to flood. And Noah gathers his family and the animals supposedly in the ark. When he's in the ark, who is he with? He got selected people with him. Yeah, I had to decline that phone call. When he's in the ark, he's got selected people with him. He's got family. He's got one of each animal. This is a selection. Once the ark was closed, there was no opening the ark for a period of time. There was no knocking on the neighbor's door. There was no going to the club. In fact, those people who were doing that were the people who were dead and dying from the flood. They did not take precautions. The whole time they wanted to be social beings, as we're talking about today, and they were social beings, and they lost their lives. Right? Boom. That's that. That's one story. So I say that because I've heard that the excuses, I've heard excuses, many excuses, as to why it is necessary to take this vaccination. And I look at it as a bully tactic, but some people look at it as a necessity to get back to life. No one wants to actually open their eyes and look at it as what it is, a bully tactic, a scare tactic to get you to harm yourself, or for the benefit of those who want you to be harmed. Alright, so we're more looking at being locked in our homes and not being able to be as social as we were as the punishment that we should be able to escape. Instead of thinking about it as maybe there's a reason why I need to be alone right now, or I need to be secluded from large gatherings. Maybe I need to focus on something else. Because part of Noah's message to the people was not just about the flood, it was about the greatness of God. And what God didn't like to see people doing. And what God wanted people to do. So they didn't want to listen to none of that. Boom, that's Noah, okay? The next one is what we're dealing with now. And it's funny that, I brought this up the other day. And now we at the time of the so-called Passover. Now, I'm not going to get into all the details, and I've read the story, different versions and different times. But in short, the Passover is a time in which death was coming to people's door. And if you didn't, you had to put a mark on your door. Some people would say it's a cross because they're Christians. But if you dig deep enough, you'll find out it was an X. And I know that in the Nation of Islam, before you get your holy name, when you first recite and become a member, you get an X. Alright? But when death was coming to a door, when death was coming to people's door, they didn't have a certain mark on their door. It would take their firstborn, or whatever the case was. There was death, right? So people had to be indoors. Not only was it, just the firstborn. Remember, the Passover was also a time of different signs. Pestilence. You ain't gonna be outside when there's a whole bunch of locusts all over the place. You know what I mean? If you know the story, then you know what the different punishments were. And to fast forward, what I'm trying to say is that we as people could not just make a vaccination to get away from death. We couldn't make a vaccination to get away from the pestilence. We couldn't, make a vaccination so we can go out and party and drink and gather. We couldn't do it. There was something that had to be done. And if you didn't care, which most people like, this part right here about the whole biblical stuff, I know most people ain't really feeling. But there was this part right there that in scripture, that if you pay attention, that the people were just like the people of today. There were things they didn't want to hear, and there were things they did want to do. And they had to pay for it. because of their ignorance. So I'm not really going to get into who religion or what religion or whatever, but I'm going to say that when you look at COVID, and like someone said to me, I'm trying real hard not to say names, that you have to have faith. And it's like, have faith in what? You know what I mean? You have to trust science. That's what somebody said to me. Whose science? Because in the time of Moses, they had magicians who threw their rods down, and Moses cast his rod, and it turned into a snake and ate the rest of their snakes up. You understand? Some people are using straight trickery to rule over people. They are actually harming us today, and we're falling for it. And then you got somebody who's telling you the truth, and because he's not the Pharaoh of today, because he's not the what we would consider the major priestesses of this time, we want to follow those other ones. That's until they get eaten up. And unlike the example of the snakes, it seems to me that the example of the snakes is going to be the example of the people. The rod being cast is them people telling you, go ahead and take this damn vaccination. It's safe. And you got someone saying, don't take the vaccination. It's not safe. And we're going to have to see how that plays out. So you got the example of Noah and his ark, and that whole time period, not just Noah and the ark, that whole time period. You got the whole example of the Passover. You know, there may be many more, but like I said, you know, I didn't take time to research any other incidents in Scripture that may contribute or attribute to people having to separate themselves not only from other people, but to change their whole way of living. Because think about it, the way we live, we all have a certain comfort zone. We all get used to doing certain things, and when something changes that, you just can't wait to get back to it. When you commit a crime, and you go to jail, one of the worst things about jail, people say, oh, you're gonna get raped, you can get raped, you can get killed, but there's a lot of homosexuals in jail too. I don't think it's too many homosexuals worrying about getting raped. That's probably like their favorite place to be. Send me to jail where all the men at. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's like saying, as a heterosexual man, hey, if I did something wrong, you gonna lock me in a room with a bunch of women. I'm doing wrong, you know what I'm saying? But I'm just joking now. But the thing is, when you supposedly, it's supposed to be a punishment that when you get arrested, you did something wrong and you go to jail, they take away not just right. It's not like I don't care about voting, I don't care about this and that. You know what I mean? That's the mentality of most people in jail anyway. But they take away things that pretty much made up most of our comfort zone. When you can't go home, kick up your feet, watch the TV, you know what I mean? Kiss your wife and play with your babies. Somebody took something away from you. In jail, you kick your feet up and watch TV. They got a day room. They got a checkerboard with some missing pieces. For some people, jail may be a step up. If you didn't have anything in the first place, you're living in the projects on the street and you ain't have nothing, jail may look like a step up. But the purpose of jail was to punish. And I bring that up to say that with COVID, it's really a punishment because of things that we've been doing. But because we don't want to hear about our punishment, we don't want to hear about paying the price, we don't want to hear about slowing down, we don't want to hear about God and what's right and wrong. We just want to live the way we've been living. Boom, you got hit with this thing that no one understood, and you had to stop. So even without being put in handcuffs, you was shackled. You couldn't do a lot. We still to this day can't do a lot of what we wanted to do. So it's only right that I bring it into the realm of scripture. I try to go through just common sense, throughout this whole talk. But at the end, I had to go into the scripture. Like, if you say you believe in God, and like me as a Muslim, when I get into it with people who claim to be Christians, a lot of people say they believe in every word of the Bible, and I try to show people that things in the Bible ain't always as it seems. There have been some things that have been altered, right? But I always come across those who say they believe in every word of the Bible. So why is it when we're going through something like this, it's so hard to get you see that it might be something we have to go through, and some vaccination, some experimental vaccination might not be the way out? Because Pharaoh's way was not the way out when there were pestilences. You know what I mean? Pharaoh's way out was not the way when Moses came and said, hey, let my people go. Right? So it wasn't Pharaoh's way. But he felt like he was God at the time, and what he said was supposed to be it. Why is it so easy to lead us astray in the wrong direction? And why are we following this Pharaoh? Because regardless of what name you put on it, president, king, queen, whatever, that's the Pharaoh. And we following everything that Pharaoh said. And at the end of the story of Moses, because it was a story of Moses in which was the Passover, because he warned Pharaoh, and Pharaoh wouldn't listen, that the pestilences came, right? So at the end, when Pharaoh finally gave in and he let the people go, remember, Pharaoh still thought so much of himself that after he pretty much gave in and let the people go, he went after them to kill them. And fell into when Moses parted the Red Sea, and then Pharaoh tried to follow, and he fell in and got swallowed up, right? So point is, you need to figure out and pay attention to who, I'm telling you who these pharaohs are, and figure out who is telling you not to take these damn vaccinations. Who is the Moses of today? I can very easily and clearly tell you that it's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I can very easily tell you that. I was trying to refrain from telling you that, not out of fear, but just because some people are so against the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that whenever his name comes up, they just want to go against anything he says. It's crazy, because when you say something that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, that where his name is not attached and it comes out of somebody else's mouth, it becomes acceptable. So I'm not trying to push my belief system on anybody who doesn't want it. But at the same time, I'm still trying to save lives of people who are being led astray by these unseen and unknown devils. I mean, we see them, but you don't recognize them for who they are, so to you, they unseen. With that being said, you know what I'm saying, I hope you think twice about not getting these vaccinations. I don't want anybody getting these vaccinations. Just continue the practices that's kept you safe up to now. And pray to the God that you believe in that at some point something factual comes to light and is presented to us in which we can trust, something that we can actually trust, not some word of some doctor or scientist who says, I believe that it's a good thing. I think, you ain't coming with facts, man. I don't want to hear. You understand? Your feelings and your emotions about something, I don't want to hear. Some people might say, well, you coming with your feelings and your emotions about the vaccination. My so-called, what you would call feelings about the vaccination are coming from facts. What's a fact? What fact am I using? The fact that they ain't proved to you nothing works. They ain't proved to you that this vaccination can keep you from getting COVID. They ain't proved to you they got your best interest at heart. They've told you these things, but they ain't proved it. They told you what they believe or what they hope, and because they might use the word what they believe or what they hope to see, you jump on board. So, with that being said, I'm done. That's an hour, 15 minutes. I didn't even think I was going to talk that long. You know what I mean? Hopefully I covered most of what I was trying to say. And like I said, I wanted to, if I had time, man, see, I'm driving this truck, man. If I had time to dig deeper into the, whether it's biblical or even to the facts, I mean, go into the history of how they've treated black people in America when it comes to vaccinations. You know, when it comes to, the polio vaccine, when it came to them putting syphilis in the blankets for the Indians. You know what I mean? They've used medicine and science and whatever to ill affect people of the globe way too much. Remember, I don't know if it was China or Japan. You know, my history is kind of foggy. You know what I mean? But where they flooded them with opium. That's why one of the biggest drugs used in I believe in China or Japan or probably both was opium. Okay, there's a whole history lesson on that. Why? Where did it come from? It came from the Europeans. They did this to ill affect a group of people. They do a lot of things to ill affect a group of people. You think they happy that black people in America are rising up and want to be equal and this and that? No. So I don't believe that the coronavirus came from a lab in China or America. You know what I'm saying? I don't know where it came from. You know what I'm saying? If it's a God-sent pestilence, then you need to reflect on God and ask Him why He sent it and figure out what God wants you to do. But we can't trust the people as easily as we've been trusting them. So if I even slightly have caused you to think twice about this vaccination, then I've done my job. Because if you wasn't thinking twice before, that means you was ready to get it. And if you get it and, you can't take it back. You can't take it back, man. I got people that I love daily who have taken the vaccination. You know what I'm saying? Recently. And it hurt my heart that I couldn't do anything to stop them from taking this vaccination. Can't take it back. And I don't want anybody to jump into something that they could have waited on. You survived the whole year without taking the vaccination. And as soon as they say, come on, you rush to go get it. Like these people are gods and they got your best interest at heart. And sorry to tell you, that's not what the case is. So I'm about to post this video, and if they take it down, they take it down. But, someone said to me, well, if something happens to me after I take the vaccination, then you'll be able to say I told you so. I don't want to say I told you so. That's not what it's about. You know what I'm saying? This ain't a competition about who knows more or whatever. Just trying to make smart decisions. And I'm just trying to, and the public is making it seem like the smartest decision is to take the vaccination. And I'm just got to be one person who tells you, don't believe the hype. Alright? Peace.